What's up, everyone? Welcome to the men's show here at Awaken Catholic. Today, we are talking about Santa Claus and how we can do a good job of exercising the traditions and the fun stuff related to Santa Claus for Christmas and Advent as Catholics, as Christians. It's all coming up right after this.
Welcome to the Men's Show on Awaken Catholic. If you want to support this show and other shows like it, you can do that by going to awakencatholic.org/donate and make a one-time donation, or even better, become part of the Awaken Nation by making a monthly donation, and that is how this studio runs and makes shows like this and keeps them coming to you. So any little bit you can give helps. That's an awesome way that you can help us out. You can also help us out by downloading the Awaken app. You do not get this through the App Store, but by going to theawakenapp.io. It's a free app. We got a growing community of awesome people when we discuss the shows. You can talk to show hosts, suggest ideas, talk about past episodes, all those things. It's great. And if you are part of that Awaken Nation, by making a monthly donation, you get access to premium content through the app. You get presentations from people like me and some of the other hosts here and some of the other presenters that you can't get anywhere else. Another way you can support us and help your own prayer life is by downloading the Hallow app through our link. Go to hallow.app/awaken, and that's a free app, but if you go through our link, you get a free month of premium, and that also helps us out financially. This is an awesome app. It will change your prayer life. If you're struggling to fit prayer into your life, you can do it in the car. You can do it while you're exercising, in the shower. If you have a phone that'll not melt in the shower, you can do it. My wife loves to do the Rosary and the daily readings. I love to use it for the Examen. Lots of us use it. It's changing prayer lives all over the world. Get that free month of premium. Go to hallow.app/awaken. And as always, another easy way to help us is if you like this show, give us a like, a subscribe, hit that bell on YouTube. Any way you can share this with people, a rating, a review, talk to us in the comments. All that stuff helps get this show in front of more people. So thank you so much for your support.
Man, Mr. Tenney, I hope one day to be as cool as you.
I hope one day to be as cool as you.
Get out of here. Welcome, everyone, to the Men's Show. Before we get into the topic, let's kind of go around and introduce ourselves.
I am Mike Tenney. I'm host of Pop Culture Catechism here at Awaken Catholic, and I'm a Catholic speaker and worship leader and stay-at-home dad. You can find more about me at miketenneymusic.com.
And I am Nick De La Torre, and I am the president of Awaken, but I also host the Awaken Catholic Show. Not to imply that it's the definitive Awaken Catholic Show amongst many great ones, but there it is.
Peter Range, and I run the Catholic Citizen here at Awaken Catholic.
John Mark Grodi. My wife and I host Elevate Ordinary here on Awaken Catholic. I work for the Coming Home Network, and I have 5 children. Child people.
Child type thing.
Crumb crunchers.
Yes, crumb crunchers. Okay. I'm Rob Holler. I am a husband and a father, and I still don't have my own show.
So maybe this is secretly your show, Rob.
This
You're the mastermind behind it secretly.
This is your world. We're just living in it.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Right.
Great. This is a nightmare.
So I want to kick off today's topic. We're going to be talking about Santa Claus and kind of a lot of things that kind of, roll out from that. But the reason that this is, I think, a topic that I wanted to bring to this, because my wife and I were talking to someone years ago. And we wrestled with, like, what are we going to do, when we have kids one day? And we wrestled with this question of, like, how are we going to approach this topic? Which, by the way, if you have kids and this is a topic that you don't want them to hear be addressed from the standpoint from which we do topics here, don't let them listen. Put on some earbuds.
Is this a parental advisory warning?
It's kind of a parental advisory. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Because of the content?
Because of the content. Yeah. Not that it's explicit content, but that it is potentially dangerous to whatever.
Or maybe not, depending on how we decide today.
It's true. It's true. We'll see where this goes. So years ago, early in our marriage, my wife and I were talking to somebody that we really respect, and we were talking about different parts of, like, childhood trauma and the dynamics between parents and children. And one of the things that he presented to us is this notion of being able to say to his children, I have never lied to you about anything. And how much that lends itself to the child's trust of the parent, of the different types of things the parent would present to the kid across different issues. But though, like, parents talking to kids about children, or excuse me, parents talking to kids about Jesus, sharing the faith, and not confusing. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here, but we just came away from that conversation really feeling like that is a very interesting notion, that even if it seems like there might not be any damage done, or it's a fun thing, like, do we need to be intentional? Do we need to avoid fun things like Santa Claus because of any potential risk of the child's trust in us being confused? So that's kind of the impetus for bringing this. And it's something that, like, every family kind of approaches this a little bit differently. Coming away from that, in our family, in our household, we don't do the Santa Claus thing in the way of, like, hey, Santa Claus is going to bring you presents. Like, we actually joke about it with our kids, and it becomes a fun thing that way. But it's fun for us in the light of truth rather than in this question of, is it real? And so, to the extent that, like, we have explained to them clearly, it's based on St. Nicholas, and there's a lot of truth in that. And we talked to them about who St. Nicholas is, but we explain, like, he's in heaven now. He's not here on earth giving presents to children. That's mommy and daddy's job. And so, thus he's dead, dead and fully alive in heaven.
Yep.
And so, what's funny is 2 Christmases ago, my daughters were just super rambunctious Christmas Eve. It was getting to be like 11 p.m. and they still weren't sleeping in their room, making tons of noise. And I walk up there and I open the door, and they freeze like deer in the headlights, and like, if by freezing, I'm not going to see that they're awake. And I'm just like, girls, go to sleep or Santa's not going to give you any presents. And Lucia, like in a horror movie, she just like turns her head and she's like, Santa's dead.
What the heck?
But it's become like this really, really fun dynamic because it's rooted in the truth of what is going on there. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that. That's my position. That's kind of where we are coming at it. But I want to wrestle with this, because if we're not doing it the right way, obviously it's too late for us, but it might not be too late for you.
Well, I think I think it's helpful sometimes to look at the extremes and then work our way inward to find the ordered balance in the middle. Yeah. On the one hand, I agree with, and I'm totally on board with, like, I do want to be able to say to my kids, I have never lied to you. That's not something I do. When I tell you something, I mean it. Okay. Now, I think there's some nuance there in the sense of I can plead the fifth occasionally, or like when the kid asks, am I getting X, Y, or Z for my birthday? I can say, we'll see, like, I don't have to answer them. So I think there's some nuance there, but like, I too am attracted to the idea. Like, I think it's right, and I think it's a point of trust in terms of parenting, that I want to be able to say that to my kids as well. That's been a point of my parenting. But it might be also helpful on the other extreme, before we necessarily get to our views, is like, what are the extremes in society that we probably all disagree with in terms of this issue? Like the way that Santa Claus is portrayed. Like, again, there's some nuance in my household in terms of how we have fun with this mythos, this mythology, this legend, around the very real figure of St. Nicholas. But on the other hand, still, I think a lot of what society does, and I'm sure people agree with me on this, is just stupid. In fact, I like to call it the Santa cult. You get around, Christmas time, and you don't have religious movies. You don't have music out there about the nativity. You have a bunch of this bizarre Santa cult fiction. You have these movies where the whole point of this movie is that you just got to believe in this thing that we all know is not true. Right. You just got to believe, because without that, there's nothing left to Christmas. Christmas has no meaning if we stop believing in Santa Claus.
The Christmas spirit.
I can name 10 movies like that. But he really is treated like a deity to be worshipped, or,
Well, and when you say cult, you don't mean like secret society of controlling people.
A cult of personality.
Cult of personality.
But what's interesting is because the way that the culture portrays that relationship of believers to Santa Claus is what the culture assumes is the relationship between Christian believers and their God. And that's a big issue with the Santa Claus cult, as I like to say it, is the sense of that, again, they see Christians in the same light, that, we all kind of know that we don't really know if he's true, we don't know, but we just got to believe, because there'd be nothing left if we stopped believing. And that's just not at all a characterization of what religious faith is and means. So again, maybe just starting there with, like, I think a lot of what is done in the name of Santa Claus or about Santa Claus and culture is really stupid, that kind of stuff.
What if it's like a mixed bag? What if there's some good things in there?
There's always a mixed bag, certainly. But I want to separate between some of this stuff.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience to you, Nick. I have some older brothers. It's nice when you're the younger brother who has their kids last, is because you get to learn from the victories and mistakes of your older siblings and their children. Mm-hmm. So I got to see my older brothers the way that they did Christmas and Santa, and it was something that my brother said that really changed my thinking on it. Is like, we put so much effort into, like you said, like believing in Santa, and there's elves and elf on the shelf even, and all these different things, and we hide the presents and we sign them from a different name. There's just so much that goes into it. And he says, but do we put that much effort into Christ, which is Christmas? And he's like, Christmas already has real magic to it.
Yeah.
Like, why don't we focus on that as much? And so he does, on the Epiphany, of the feast of the when the wise men bring gifts to Jesus, like that's a huge thing in their house, and they dress up like the wise men. They parade around the house and play music. And the first thing they do on Christmas before they receive gifts, they read the scriptures. They put Jesus in the manger. They go to church, and gifts is about giving gifts, not about receiving gifts. And so instead of taking turns opening gifts, they take turns giving gifts. So who do you want to give a gift to next? Who do you want to give a gift to next?
So cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Nice.
And so that has formed my thinking. And also, like, I was one of those kids who I believed way longer after than I should have. Like, I was way too old to still be believing in Santa. And I was like reading books where they talked about when they didn't believe in Santa anymore. And I was like, well, wait a minute, and even though I kind of knew, when like I finally learned from my parents and my older brothers, it still kind of like broke my heart. And I've known former students like that. I've had nieces and nephews who have I actually spoiled Santa for some of my nephews. Sorry, guys. And it was kind of traumatic for them, and it was kind of traumatic for me. And I almost feel like in some ways if we overemphasize Santa to the exclusion of Christ, we're almost setting up our kids to be future ex-Catholics.
Yes.
We're almost setting them up to be future ex-believers, where you believe this when you were young. Because how many people do we know that grew up in the church, but now they're like, oh, I outgrew that. Like I understand that was just a myth to help me learn about loving people, but I don't need to go to church anymore. I don't really need. Jesus was a historical figure.
That's the crucial issue for me, is the parallels between the Santa mythos and what we know to be true about God is so. There's too much overlap between the two stories. There's this jolly man with a beard in the North Pole in this place that you'll never actually get to see, and he's real, but you'll never actually see him, and he gives you things, and he knows when you've been nice, and he knows when you've been naughty, and you'll get punished or blessed based on your behavior. And there's this God in this heaven that you'll never see while you're here on earth, that you can't actually see. He's got a beard, and both the old version of him and the young version of him have a beard, and he knows when you've been nice, he knows when you've been naughty, and you'll get punished or blessed based on your behavior. And then all of a sudden, maybe when you're between 7 and 10 years old, maybe a little bit older, one of these stories is total bullcrap, but definitely believe this other one. And to me, it's like we are setting them up to question these stories that we tell them, when we could instead, why should they believe this other story when the other one is so similar? And we're like, oh, but carpet, out from under you, either because we told you or your peers did. There's so much overlap that it just becomes so dangerous. And there is so much magic in the incarnation and in the nativity. And I just think it does take away from the focus. And I love what your brother does, and I totally want to adopt that. I'm really excited to try to do that, actually.
So I guess I'm a little bit of I don't want to say, I'm not on the other side. So I think there's a lot of beauty in Santa in terms of, explaining mystery or inviting people into mystery. I think there's a huge problem, though, when it is divorced from, the ultimate purpose of Christmas, and it's not subordinate. One of the most, the things that I appreciate most ornaments is the Santa kneeling before Christ. Yeah. And I think, as long as we're able to do that and put Christ first, I think Santa can be used as a tool appropriately in a way to invite children into mystery, but it must be subordinate to the purpose and meaning of Christmas. And if it's not, we have what our culture has, we have Santa and no Christ.
Yeah, I think that it's a crucial distinction here that we want to make. The word believe is used and abused in many different ways. There's a great, if you want to dig into, the aspects of what the word belief means, Joseph Pieper's book on the theological virtues is a good place to start. Some short tracts on analyzing the different ways we use this term that are bizarrely different from one another. And one of my big problems with the muddiness of this, as you guys were talking, is that, again, the part of the issue is there's this weird obsessive emphasis on you just got to believe in this thing that we the parents know or don't know is true, don't believe is true. And then that is assumed to be the same relationship that we actually have in Christianity between ourselves and our God. That's not what religious faith is like. Like I have experienced Christ. I have come to know him. I can encounter God. Like that is part of my proposal when I offer the gospel to my children, saying, no, I have met God in this mysterious way. In my heart, I have encountered Christ. And I want you to believe in that because on my testimony, this is something I really do believe is true. It's so weirdly different than what's portrayed in like the Santa Claus movies, where it's like, it's this weird game. We have to just keep them believing, because what happens if they don't believe? Well, then the Christmas spirits died. Then they won't be good. Then all these things will happen. They'll lose hope. That's one of my great concerns, is that conception of what belief and faith are so easily and transferred over into our understanding of what religious faith are. But Rob, you brought up a good distinction here, which is I think, again, in the context of taking really seriously what we mean by religious faith and belief in a God that has come to meet us and we can encounter him. And that's what we're proposing as Christians, that in the context of that, the elements of like Christmas mythos over the centuries in different Catholic cultures, where there's an openness to wonder, not positively saying that something is, but saying, hey, legend has it, such and such happened. And I don't know, I haven't seen it, but there's playfulness in that myth. They're open to wonder, open to mystery, open to things that are beyond me, open to miracles. Like, I don't know what's going to happen this Christmas night. God can work all kinds of, there's a difference there between this weird positive, like we got to make sure the kids believe in this thing that we all know is not true, versus being open, like maybe fairies exist. I don't know. I haven't seen them, but nothing about the universe convinces me that otherwise.
But there are ways that we are creating. So, you mentioned, I think beautifully, that like with Jesus Christ, like you've had an experience of him, with God. And similarly, I have a relationship with God that is not just based on what I know and the knowledge that I've gained, which, makes sense. Like it's sensible that God exists. It's sensible that Jesus Christ is the incarnation of God. Like these things make sense. If you understand, all of that, but it's more than that. It's that I have encountered and have a personal relationship, and like I know, I am known by him, and I know to some extent him, and I've experienced him in prayer, the grace that I've received in very, very real ways that are undeniable. How is that different than setting up for a child an experience of Santa Claus? Not just like
sitting on his lap, you mean?
Well, sitting on his lap, or they receive presents from Santa Claus, and they're developing the sense of having experienced a truth in this thing that is ultimately a lie. Because it is a lie, like this present's from Santa Claus, or rather than this present's from mommy and daddy who worked our asses off to give it to you, right? Like, I just think that we're creating
a little gratitude for mommy.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
No, but I think that there is a real problem in setting up a false experience, because then it calls into question, well, wait, are these experiences with God also false? Was it just the fog machine at this mega church that I went to, or this massive conference? Like, was it, the power of the Holy Spirit in the kick drum that I was feeling, or was it actually God? Like, and I think that we have to be really careful and intentional about the experiences that we are falsifying out in a spirit of fun and in a spirit, like with good intentions, because it ultimately is rooted in falsity, and it doesn't bring them closer to God. It actually has the risk of calling into question things that are true, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the nephews that I ruined Santa Claus for, and it was a bit traumatic for them. Sorry again. When he found out, like he was like almost tearing up, and he said, "But Mom, what about the Santa tracker?"
and there's like this app or
On
this
Google.
they have
Google
this
wouldn't
Santa
lie.
tracker.
Google would never lie.
And he's like, that's proof. Like Santa,
my Google.
why would they? And
Why would they do that?
When his yeah, exactly. That's what he said when his mom was like, well, that's just for the fun of it. He's like, why would they do that? Like, why would they lie to us about that? And so I think it can be traumatic for people. Now, on the other hand, like I am not a person who says you have to swear off fantasy. Like I am a lover of fantasy. We just recorded an episode on Harry Potter. I love Halloween. I missed the Halloween episode that we did on this show.
Yeah. You were sorely missed.
Well, and I sorely missed you guys. Like I am a big believer that fantasy and fiction, as Tolkien writes in his theory of fantasy, can open our mind to the mysteries of this world. And we kind of go into the wardrobe of Narnia and we come back and and the world here hasn't changed, but we've changed. And we see realities here in a new way. But the difference I see between Halloween and with Santa is we don't tell the kids that the ghosts and the ghouls are real. Right. There's an understanding that the ghosts and the ghouls at Halloween
that you're seeing,
are not real. Like it's part of the fun.
Right.
And so that's, I think we have to be careful. And I have great respect. Actually, I have great respect for some people who I think they can do Santa well. I'm not of the belief that nobody should do Santa, that like I had a Facebook discussion with a lot of my friends last year when my daughter was kind of the first age to really discuss this stuff. And I kind of had a very similar experience where she was asking about Santa. I was like, well, Santa lived a long time ago. And she was like, Santa's dead? And I was like, yeah, but he's with God in heaven. And she was upset. Anyway, we talked about it and she's cool now. Although every once in a while she does still ask, is Santa still dead? And I'm like, yes, I'm bad at explaining things. But anyway, part of that conversation, two of my friends who I love dearly, my friend, mentor and colleague Ron, who's he's an elderly gentleman, and he taught in our school for many years. He was in the Air Force. He raised 12 kids. He has like 30 some grandkids and a bunch of great grandkids. Here's what he said, and I don't think he would mind me sharing this. He said, Santa is still real to me. He is the spirit of Christmas, the idea of giving, not receiving. He may start out as this in the commercial world of ours, as someone who gives things, but as our children mature, he becomes this idea of peace on earth, goodwill to men. As people mature, they can understand things differently, just like I understand math differently as a computer science geek than I did as a first grader. And one of my other friends who is Catholic and has 5 kids and another on the way, she said, this is exactly how we explain Santa in our house. I have 2 who no longer believe in the magic, but it wasn't sad to them. Now they get to be a Santa and a gift giver. When they asked if Santa was real, I said, yes, that he is based off St. Nicholas, and anyone who would receive rather than give is also a Santa and living as a saint. And so, and she said it was an easy conversation to have, and now they are the Santas. They get to live as a saint, and this is something cool that they get to do for their younger siblings. And so, and these are people that I know are faithful Catholics. They love Jesus, and they're not letting Jesus be trumped by Santa. You know what I mean? And so I think there is a way to do Santa that is holy and leads people to Christ. I'm not sure that's where I want to focus my energy, but I think it can be done. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the beauty of a jolly old fat man with a long white beard in this cozy, comfortable North Pole. It's a very nice place. If you guys haven't seen it, very nice. I think he is so happy because a baby came into the world in this rude stable, and his joy overflows from that to give gifts to the world. That idea is a beautiful thing if it's rightly understood as subordinate and resulting from.
But isn't that just blatantly dishonesty?
I don't think you have to. I mean, but that's the idea of like saying this is what's happening, this is true, versus this is what someone would do.
Like, why is that an important story when you could instead say, hey, we're celebrating the birth of Christ, so we're going to give each other presents? Why does it have to be some man in the North Pole that doesn't exist?
I don't think it does. But if there's a way to do
it, I'm just saying, if there's a way to do it where you're not being dishonest, why not do it the honest way? That is still magical and still beautiful, still a reflection of a giving heart.
But I think there's a way to culturally connect with it. I think there's a way to enter into that so many people have. The world has. But I do think there's a way to draw them into that deeper mystery of Christ.
Kind of take this thing that has drifted from Christ and kind of bring it back, almost as a way of evangelization.
I don't think it was away from Christ originally. We have the legend of Saint Nick who put money, a dowry in shoes so a father could help their daughters get married. Like coming down the chimney. Like there is some reality that it came from.
I do think we should talk about the historical St. Nicholas. I think that's relevant.
Hold on, Pete, were you going to say something a second ago?
No, I think that's a good point. So I'll say, I'm just listening. It's great.
No.
Well, okay. So I think, so it's interesting to hear some of the arguments. I feel like I'm right in the middle between the two wings here. But you're right in the context of like the power that is present in the incarnation. Like we don't need anything else. We don't need to focus on anything else. But because there is so much power in the incarnation, there develops all these wonderful stories. There develops all these wonderful saints throughout the history of the church, including St. Nicholas. And their legends develop from St. Nicholas to become eventually Santa Claus, because the power itself is just so overwhelming from the incarnation. It can't help but create this world of magic and of power. Yes, I use the word magic, but the world of power from this climactic event of the incarnation itself. So I think it can be a both and
the power that exceeds reality.
What does that mean?
I mean,
exceeds reality, material reality,
natural. Has a supernatural reality. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
I think going back to Tenny's point, the danger is like once you open the door to the secular, to the Santa of the world, it becomes really hard to close that door. And this is really personal for me. It's hard for me even to talk about because of my own experience. And like, I remember feeling lied to when I found out that Santa wasn't real. And that's like very distinct memory of my childhood, but not everybody has that experience. Right. But I do think of my daughter who's 4 now, and my wife and I, it's also very personal because my wife and I have little differences of opinions on this, because I wouldn't have done Santa
Which one
at
of you
all
is right?
in my house. I would.
I'm kidding.
Clearly, I believe I'm always right. That's part of the problem with my marriage, which is my fault. But like my 4-year-old daughter right now, so she is the sweetest little girl in the entire world, and she like looks up to me and she wants to talk about Santa now, and like Santa dropping off all these presents. So I'm getting down to like the practical brass tacks. Like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, do I just say, honey, you know that story Mama told you about Santa? Like,
oh no.
Or, I mean, what am I supposed to do? Or do I go along with it? Do I do well, yeah, we'll see. I know Jesus is coming, but, and just not talk about him. Like, this is a hard thing to do then as a parent, because I don't want to sow distrust with her relationship with her mom. I don't want to just sow distrust with her relationship with me. So there's a lot of aspects here. And I think
you want to know why this is convoluted?
There might be a way. Well, hold on. Let me just finish my point.
This is what lies do.
So
I'm going to drop the mic.
But you play video games with your kids, right? You show them cartoons. These things aren't real.
But you don't present them as real.
I don't present them as real. We're having fun. I just played pirates outside with my kids last night, and we were pretend pirates, and it was really fun.
Yeah, but do your kids understand completely when you're doing these pretend things with them or pretend games? Do they always understand that it's completely pretend?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
But even if they don't always understand, the intention and the explanation is there to say, hey, no, this isn't real.
We were playing Mario Kart. They do not think that they are Princess Peach or Mario or Luigi. We were controlling avatars with a controller and racing on a track.
Well, I mean, that's part of child development, right? As they go through a phase where they're not really sure. I was like, I'm a bear, I'm going to eat you. And they get scared. Like they really think you're a bear for a second. And that's part of growing up is they grow through that. And that's part of the parent's job is to help them as they're growing through that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old is explaining and helping them delineate between reality and fantasy. And so I think there's something that I think why it was kind of traumatic to me and why I felt lied to and why I think many of us have had this experience is maybe our parents let it go on too late.
But why at all? Why is it important? Like, why is it so important that we cling to this idea of deceiving our children about this thing that's unnecessary because Christmas is magical anyway? Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at, but I try to have an open mind about it.
And that seems to be what the culture does. And I'm against that as well. This weird obsession with children have to positively believe this thing. Now, I want to start from the other end though, because if we, we have people who positively will want to insist that the world is merely material. And we don't believe that. We believe in the transcendent reality. And it's that reality that we've encountered that we bring back and colors our understanding of the world we live in. You know, we've talked a lot recently on various different shows about, you know, one of the roles of fantasy, as Tolkien pointed out, is precisely to awaken us to the realities in our own world. Okay, in our world, there is providence and free will. There is good and evil. There is magic in the qualified sense that we've talked about it. There is the transcendent. In fact, that's the most real thing about our world are those things. And so with that baptized Christian imagination, that doesn't mean that we walk around positively believing that there are fairies behind every rock, but it also means we walk around not with this sort of smug assumption that I have figured this world out. With Hamlet, we say to Horatio, there are greater things in heaven and earth than you've dreamt of in all your philosophies, you moron. Like it's an arrogant, prideful, smug thing to assume that we've exhausted the mystery of this world. Whereas the Christian comes to the world with humility saying, I don't know. I know I've encountered God, and I know that He's behind this all, and He is a great author, and there are more mysteries in this world than I know. Now, with that in mind, I think we can qualify a little bit. Like, again, I do not want to lie to my kids. I will not lie to them. Okay, but when they come and ask me, Daddy, are unicorns real? It's no lie for me to say, I don't know. Like, I have not met a unicorn. But in my particular experience, I have not encountered one, but I have not explored the whole world. I have not explored the other planets. Maybe there's other dimensions. I don't know. What do you mean by real exactly?
Yeah, right.
You know, to positively say no, well, that's more than I can claim for myself.
And for Santa Claus.
And so for Santa Claus,
that's different.
No. Hold up here.
Ho, ho, ho.
Saint Nicholas was a real historical figure. Saint Nicholas is alive in the communion of saints. Yeah. Okay. Does Saint Nicholas work miracles on Christmas night? I can't know that.
Yeah,
I know he didn't come to my house and I put those presents under the tree. And if my kids ask me point blank, I'm either going to say, I'm not going to say, or I'm going to say, no, it was me. Well, but I cannot positively say what God does or doesn't do through His saints and in His wisdom and in His authorship of this fantasy world we live in. I don't know His rules. I don't know His mind.
Yeah, but look at recently the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie.
Yeah.
Okay, the two parents, or the mother and the stepfather of the kid, at the end of the movie, they suddenly believe in Santa Claus. Why? Because he gives them their childhood present that they stopped believing in Santa Claus because Santa Claus didn't give it to them.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Santa Claus is real. And even within the mythos of that story, where Santa Claus is real, he didn't show up and give them the present, and so they stopped believing in him. And then as adults, they get these childhood toys that they had asked for decades before, and then suddenly, because they get them now from Tim Allen's version of Santa Claus, they believe in Santa Claus.
Who is their father?
It's a goofy conception of believing.
Right, yeah, it's absolutely absurd. So,
I have two questions that I want to talk about. One, what does an authentic devotion to St. Nicholas look like? And how can we have that as part of our Christmas celebrations? And there's the Feast of St. Nicholas, and we can talk a little bit about the historical St. Nicholas. And my second question is, when we have kind of these legends that grow up around saints, what do we do with that? Like, my confirmation saint is St. George. And the most famous thing about St. George is that he was a dragon slayer.
Which he definitely did do.
Yeah. Now I have, in my own kind of understanding, is, you know, my name is Michael, and St. Michael is often depicted as standing on the devil's head, like stabbing him with a spear. And
Epic.
George is portrayed as stabbing a dragon. So I take that as kind of like my sign from God that, like, I am meant to fight evil. I am meant to, like, fight the devil, punch the devil in the face with truth and love wherever I see it in the world. And that's helpful for me in my spiritual life. So those are the two questions I have is first, how do we have an authentic devotion to St. Nicholas surrounding Christmas? What does that look like in the right way? And then two, what do we do with these legends that spring up around saints?
And Santa's like way too big. He's way too important. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Like the way the whole holiday of Christmas, Holy Day, is built around Santa is just crazy. Yeah. It is crazy. I think Santa might fit appropriately over here, this small little part of, you know, leading to Christ in the crib. And outside of that, you know, if he becomes central, that's not authentic.
What do we know about St. Nicholas? Like, for people that, I know a little bit about St. Nicholas. He was a bishop he's like in the 300s. He was at the Council of Nicaea, right?
Was it Arius?
Yeah, Arius the heretic.
He punched him in the
supposedly
face.
he punched Arius in the face at the Council of
Amazing.
Nicaea.
He was really mad. He apologized, I think.
Yeah.
There were stories about him doing acts of kindness, sneaking in and giving gifts to, a family where that was poor, the daughters were getting sent off or something like that. And there's,
It put in their shoes. That's where the stockings.
So what you were saying about, St. Michael and all that, and feeling like, you feel called to live that out similarly because your name is Michael. So I'm meant to be kind and giving and punch heretics in the face.
But I'm also,
because you're Nicholas.
Yeah, definitely that fits there.
But apologize.
Yes. And again, so with some of the saints, again, we have some of these legends where the church is not going to say there was definitely a dragon and George definitely killed him. But it also would be silly for the church to rule it out. Like, the church has no grounds for that. I wasn't there. I haven't a time machine to go back and see that. There are more things in heaven and earth than I've dreamt of in all of my philosophy. I know that the saints worked miracles.
Yeah.
God worked miracles through them. I know that there are crazy things out there that I didn't experience, but they're true nonetheless. So I think that, again, there is a room in there without positively saying, I definitely know this thing is for sure true, to say, God has worked amazing things out there. And there's some stories around these things. I don't know if that really happened, but I know it could happen if God wanted it to.
But I think that we have to operate with what we do know, because there are things we don't know that we have to acknowledge and live according to that acknowledgement. But we have to also reconcile our lives with what we do know.
Right. Keeping those distinct and communicating them differently.
One of the things we know,
yeah,
I think, in a sense, preeminently, is the commandments. And a commandment, which I think we cannot, manipulate our way out of, is to not lie, to not bear false witness. And at what point are we then submitting or surrendering a part of the integrity of following that commandment to for some reason hang on to this thing because it's cultural and it's fun and it's mythical, even if we're doing it in some rightly ordered way?
How far is too far?
Who's defining what is rightly ordered in this thing that is blatantly a lie in the first place? So, and the lie part of it is not like, this mysterious, saint, somehow finding a good way to have a devotion to St. Nicholas. The lie part of it is any implication, any lending to this falsity that someone other than me is giving you the presents when it was me and that was truth. Why would I bear, where is the white lie acceptable?
This is where I think you're limiting truth a little bit. So I think it's a lot to call it a blatant lie. I think it is an overgrown truth. There is falsehoods in it.
Yeah, but who can draw those lines? Who has the right to draw those lines?
I think we all have the responsibility to do it ourselves and to try and sort through what is good and what is not.
Well, we have to, again, it's a messy thing because we have, I think it is difficult to start from the place where the culture has, again, what I call this kind of the Santa cult, the way the movies portray this weird obsession with trying to convince kids to just believe in Santa. I think it's hard to start there and then walk that back to Christianity. And I think there really is a real issue there. I don't think there's necessarily an issue with me, with Teresa and I, so my wife and I, in the construction of our domestic liturgy of Christmas, intentionally say, leaving some mystery around presents, saying it doesn't really matter where these presents came from. On Christmas morning, presents show up. Okay, and if you ask me where, I'm not going to say these came from X, Y, or Z, but there's something about anonymous giving. That's a bit of the spirit of the holiday, like receiving something I didn't deserve. To leave that there. That's very different than I think starting from the Santa cult and trying to Christianize it. Like we emphasize on Christmas night that one of the patrons of this holiday is Saint Nicholas. He did X, Y, and Z. For all I know, he may still work miracles. I think all my kids already know that Santa, that they don't think that Santa Claus brings presents on that, because they've all asked me at some point. I've said, no, but Saint Nicholas is real. And I think, miracles still happen in the world. Okay. So I'm not going to limit God's glory, God's ability, but you asked me about that present you got. Yeah, I gave that to you.
But Saint Nicholas, pray for us.
Well, it also goes back to the thing you said about Halloween. And just to clarify a statement that you said, we don't present Halloween as the kids believing the ghosts and goblins. You said something about that. Well, we don't want them, we're not trying to insist that they believe that the ghosts and goblins they're seeing the other kids dressed up are ghosts and goblins. but I believe in ghosts and goblins. I believe in evil spirits. I believe there's evil out there. I don't know the extent of that evil. I don't know the forms of those evil. I think it was Chesterton who famously said, we don't have dragons in fantasy, I'm butchering the thing, to convince children that dragons exist. That's not the important aspect of it. It's that dragons can be killed. That's the reason that we have those.
Interesting.
Because that's the reality of the world. There is evil. I don't know what form it takes. I don't know every form evil has taken. I don't know the extent of that, but I do know that evil exists and it can be conquered. That's the salient point here. Those are real. Those are real things. I don't know the details, but those two are realities.
And when going back to what I said about the idea of Saint Nick, I think there's a big distinction between simply saying like Santa Claus is real in this way, and he is bringing you gifts and putting it under the tree specifically, versus having that story, that overgrown truth, or the goodness of the story, and having that be a part of Christmas. One is saying Santa is real in this definitive way. Another one is that legend, that mythos, where you don't go and say, basically, you don't have to lie to your kids about it. I don't feel like I think you can have Santa and not lie. And I think where you come from is like, why would you indulge in this at all? There's no good. I'm not saying you're saying there's no good. I think I just almost said that. Maybe you are. But I say, why would you indulge in it if so many people get confused?
Yeah, I'm definitely not saying there's no good. What I'm proposing is I'm not seeing clearly what the necessity is to indulge in an untruth when the truth is so beautiful and powerful.
But I think Santa as a story and a myth, as a legend, is good.
Right, but the application
is important.
Is messy to do without sacrificing integrity and trust from your children in the future potentially. It's not that it's impossible like what we've been talking about, but it is so messy and easy to accidentally end up doing it poorly, or with a lack of integrity on some level. The other thing that we haven't really addressed directly, and I'm wondering if this is something you guys are encountering with the tension you're wrestling with.
Elves.
Elves.
Sorry.
No, is there? So there's the societal obsession and pressure, but the other thing here is like a generational thing that I know of people that have wrestled with like, we have to live out the traditions that have been in my family, and this is how we did it, and blah blah blah. Yeah. And like that can also be like, how many things has every family done that really shouldn't be done again? We have this obsession with like clinging to what we experienced as kids, and our kids need to have the same thing. And no, that isn't necessarily true, that it has to be that way.
But I don't think it has to be thrown out either.
And I like the word you used was your family's, your household's liturgy, your way of.
It's like a game in our house. Like we have never positively, we've never tried to get our kids to believe in Santa Claus. We've tried very hard to get them to believe in what we believe in, which is Christ and his revelation, those kind of things. We sort of play a game about St. Nicholas Day. We're not trying to make a big deal out of trying to get them to believe that but we put stuff in their shoes and they say, where did this stuff, did St. Nicholas? I don't know.
Yeah.
And they all kind of know this is a fun game we play because we really believe in St. Nicholas and we really believe in God and we really believe that miracles happen. But this is a fun little liturgical game that we play that points to those realities, even though this thing is clearly a game. Like everybody kind of gets that. My kids get
December 6th, right? Is St. Nicholas Day?
Yeah.
December 6th.
Were you going to say something, Pete?
Somewhere in there.
8th is Immaculate Conception.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting for me because normally I would be on your side in the context. And I think like the way that you're arguing is very effective concerning not lying to our children. However, I think there's part of me that just wants to acknowledge that as kids are growing up and they're developing, there are just some things that happen as they're growing that we don't want to crush their spirit with complete dead on like hard fact. And so I appreciate the way that you're approaching it, saying, well, I don't know, but like,
that's not lying.
Right.
I really don't know. Like, I want to emphasize this here. What is lying? What's not lying? Lying is positively saying something that I believe, that I know is not true.
Yeah.
And there's nuance there.
So like the other night, my 2-year-old John Paul, we went outside with our flashlights and we're like, let's go look at the stars, right? Because this is going to be a fun experience for our kids. And so John Paul, because he's a little bit young, he's having trouble finding the stars. We turn off the flashlights. Gianna can see that they're up above. John Paul sees the street light. And unlike Gianna, he hasn't been able to find a star the whole night, but he sees the street light and he's like, it's a star. Like, now I could come down and be really honest in that moment and be like, John Paul, that's a street light. That is not a star. And I can see him cry the rest of the evening because he thought he saw a star.
Finally, yeah.
Or I could say, wow, buddy, great job. You know? And like, so he's born to the wonder of wanting to search farther into the sky for stars.
That's awesome.
And so I think Santa, in the same way, nothing is irredeemable. And yes, we've gone so far away from the incarnation, but we can find seeds of the word even in the Santa story, the giving, the caring for others, the bringing gifts to others, the Santa kneeling at Jesus. Like even Santa himself can be redeemed. If we direct Santa, we direct everything in our lives, including fantasy, back to the point of reality and truth itself,
which is
and that
Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Amen.
But there is
Yeah.
a difference between Santa and the streetlight.
No analogy is 100%
No, but-
perfect.
but I find
Can I
that
say something about his point before we go to something else?
Sure.
And I think there are so many beautiful things within our church that we kind of neglect in terms of observing Christmas. Like there's the whole season of Advent, and there's beautiful ways to celebrate Advent with the Jesse tree and Advent calendars and season of waiting and hymns. And my brother, during Advent they do a silent moment at night of prayer where they just light a candle and turn off all the lights and they just sit in silence for a few minutes each night. There's beautiful ways to celebrate Advent, and then celebrating Christmas through all 12 days and celebrating the Epiphany. My family, we often do in-laws on Christmas, and then the Epiphany is like the tenny time to celebrate. And it's a great way to celebrate the full Christmas season. And I think in the Eastern churches, sometimes they celebrate it all the way till the presentation of the Lord in February. Like, leave your Christmas lights up, leave those trees up. Like, there's so many awesome ways to celebrate Christmas that are fun, that are magical, that are beautiful, and point to Christ. And I think that is the key point. Is I'm not anti-Santa. It's all got to come back to Christ. Yeah. It's all got to come back to Christ.
I'm a little bit anti-Santa. But the reason is actually the reason for that is largely depicted in the example you gave about the streetlight, because your son knows that there are stars, and he was seeking out the beauty of the stars, and he found a shining light that was beautiful, right? Left to his own devices, that's where he landed. Children left to their own devices would never come to the conclusion of Santa. They have to get lied to at some point to wonder about and seek out Santa.
Lie is still a strong word here.
Kids play in fantasy. I mean, it's how they learn and grow. And so maybe Santa wouldn't exist if people didn't tell them, but there would still be other fantasy that kids
where'd those simply originally, where'd those fun
But I feel like the difference is the same with like your question about the video games and stuff. It's like, my daughter, because we do play games and watch, fun kids movies and stuff that have some magic in them. Like she'll ask like, hey, is that real? And I'll say, there's real magic. She'll ask like, is magic real? And I'll say, well, there's real magic and power in God and the Holy Spirit and the way that he moves in our lives. And some of the saints have done really amazing things. And I'll end up redirecting towards what is true. But I won't say that by getting that amulet, you can do whatever. Like, I just think that you can redirect to truth. And like the light thing, you were right to not be like, no, you're wrong, John Paul. Like, but there's a huge difference between that and Santa, because with Santa, you have to literally plant the seed of believing in that for that to even be a question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but what the argument you just made is a reason why not to show your daughter the amulet, because you've planted a seed there, which she didn't know about before. So in that case, the argument you're making, she should not be playing those video games, which lead them away to anything that doesn't point to Christ. So
no, because you're defining the truth of it. You're not allowing her to bask in. I'm not going to be like, yeah, maybe there is that magic. Maybe you could go do that thing in real life.
But Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, here's the difference is as your son grows up, naturally he's going to know what a star is. Right. And it would be wrong of you to say, no, that streetlight really is a star. Like if you persisted in trying to convince him that that was a star. And I think that's sometimes what people do with Santa and so that's the mistake. Like it's okay to play in fantasy. It's okay for kids as they're going through that stage of development to have some confusion about what's real and what's not. But again, it's our job as parents to guide them through that and help them to see how the myth points to the reality.
Well, and again, as long as we keep the reality, we're not, because again, there's two approaches to reality here. One is the materialist sort of everything is less than it seems. Your reason is merely rationalization. Your love is merely lust. This couch is merely atoms and molecules. No, I mean, every time we say it's merely this, that's always wrong. Mm-hmm. Everything we encounter is actually more than it seems. Human beings are not merely what they're made of. In the Dawn Treader, Chronicles of Narnia, the Dawn Treader, they encounter a star in Narnia, and in that fantasy world, in that universe, the stars are their personalities, they're people. The star came down, and they met the star, and the kid remarks, "Wow, that's amazing! The stars are people in this world." And back in our world, they're just balls of burning gas and stuff. And the star's like, "Oh, honey, even in your world." That's what they're made of. That's not all they are.
That's awesome.
And I might have messed up the quote a little bit, but the point being, anytime you say it's merely this, no. Everything, every bit of this world is more than it seems. And so
more than the sum of its parts.
That's the reality you want, and so I think lying is antithetical to that. I think outright trying to get them to believe something you really don't think is true is wrong to that. But approaching reality and talking about reality in such a way that what we're trying to set up a right relation to reality, which is that it's wonder. It's always expecting there's more for me to discover. There's more to God's mystery. There's more to his providence. There's more to this amazing story we find ourselves in. That I try to promote my kids every place I can, because I really think that is the way it is.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The good news is, guys, that we saved the world and we got to the bottom of this, and I'm right. So,
you're wrong.
Guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I hope that for viewers, listeners, that this was edifying for you, and that you were able to kind of grapple with the different angles on this question. Ultimately, though, it all is it stems in truth and in the glory of God and the beauty of the incarnation. And take what you heard today and do with it what you will in your homes, in the liturgy of the way your household celebrates Christmas, and let us know which one of us you're going to side with.
It's at the time of this filming, it's not quite Advent yet, but by the time you see this, it will be. So happy Advent and Merry Christmas to all of you and to all of you gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Thanks for being here with us, guys. And Teddy, if you want to bring us home.
Yeah, St. Nicholas, pray for us.
Amen.
Thank you for watching the Men's Show on Awaken Catholic. If you like this show and shows like it, if there's somebody you know that would benefit from what we've said here, please send them a text and say, "Hey, I think you'd like this show." Share it on your social stories. That's a great way to help spread the show. You can always subscribe, rate, review. All that stuff helps us. And the biggest way that you can help us, if you want to, in a very real way help us out, is go to awakencatholic.org/donate and become a monthly donor. Make that part of your donations and your tithing is support our efforts here. And you become part of the Awaken Nation, and you gain access. Not only are you doing great things for the kingdom of God and spreading truth, beauty, and goodness, but you also are helping out the people here, and you will also gain access to premium content, talks from show hosts and presenters from Awaken Catholic like me and others here. So please go do that. You can also download the Awaken app by not going to the App Store, but by going to theawakenapp.io. That's the only place you can get our app, and the community is growing. We're up over 100 members right now. We have cool little discussions with fans of the show and part of the community members and different show hosts. We talk about upcoming shows and past shows and all that, and it's great. And if you are part of that Awaken Nation, by making a monthly donation, you get a second tier of the app. You get premium content. So also you can download the Hallow app and get a free month of premium by going to hallow.app/awaken. That helps us out, and it also will help out your prayer life. God bless you. Merry Christmas. We'll see you next time.
This show and all media on Awaken Catholic is made possible by the Awaken Nation and the Hallow app. The Awaken Nation is a community of people like you who support all things Awaken for as cheap as a cup of coffee a week and get access to exclusive content. Learn more by visiting awakencatholic.org/donate. Hallow is the only audio-guided Catholic prayer app focused on contemplative prayer and traditional Catholic meditation such as Lectio Divina, Daily Examen, and the Rosary. We here at Awaken all use Hallow every day and love it. To learn more or give it a try, visit hallow.app/awaken.